3, 2, 1.
Right, first of all, thank you everyone for turning out. As you know, this Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill affects every parent, it affects all educators, and it affects society as a whole and all faith groups. We have a fantastic array of different speakers to speak to different issues on this. We're going to be starting with Jen, and so I'll let Jen take it away.
Hello. I'm going to start some karaoke to start the event off. So, first of all, thank you so much, everybody, for coming today, and a massive thank you to Michelle and to everybody who has supported her in bringing this event to London and it happening. So, big thanks. Can we have a big round of applause for Michelle and her team and all the stewards? Wonderful. So my name's Jen Hodge. I'm a parent, I'm a home educator, I'm an advocate and campaigner for educational choice and freedom and doing things differently. I also run, 5 years ago I set up an education centre in Somerset for any child really. We run things in holidays, things with youth groups and a home ed provision. And what started off as something for home educators to come and access and to get together and do some interesting stuff together has actually turned into a haven for for nearly 100 children who have been harmed in our mainstream school system. This is a massive, massive problem, and the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Bill does nothing to support well-being of children in school, which is a bit of an irony, really, isn't it? So, when I look around the crowds today, I can see so many different people, different ethnicity, different religions, different backgrounds, and you are all absolutely unique. Now, because of that, that also means that you are going to learn differently, you are going to have different intelligences, different things you're strong at, and that is why we need different options for education. This is why we need mainstream school reform, that's what I want, but we need home education to be supported and parents to be trusted to make the right decisions for their children. We need curriculums to remain as open as possible and for academies, schools to be able to make the right choice for them. We need to go further than this. Parents need to be able to make the decision if their child needs a day off because they are unwell, because they're overwhelmed, because maybe there's stuff going on in the family. They're also allowed to go on holiday. Holidays are the most wonderful, enriching thing that you can do, and you know, it's not always affordable, but if you can do it, you want to be able to do it. You can learn so much from that time together as a family, exploring maybe a different area, and that right should be protected without fear of prosecution. We also need to think of our independent schools and the amount of families who rely on them for their send child to get a decent, accessible education that works for them. Every child who can access an independent school has a right to be there, and we shouldn't be curtailing access to that by taxing families, taxing schools. They're closing down, families can no longer afford the fees. We need more, not less. Now, our Labour government is not just limiting our educational choices. I strongly believe they're also dividing the family unit. Whilst childcare is important and people have every right to be a working parent, there should be just as much support and in fact more encouragement for parents to be able to afford to stay at home in those early years. And I And we need to empower parents to have these skills. I am fed up of hearing about the government saying children aren't potty trained, children aren't brushing their teeth, we have to do it. Schools are going to have to do it. Let's have our school-based nurseries. Let's have those children in earlier because parents are not capable. Parents have been disempowered. We need to bring back our Sure Start centres. We need to invest into our communities. We need to make it so that actually if a parent chooses to stay at home, if that's what they want, that they are financially able to do so and supported to do so. Family is so important. Whatever your family looks like, it doesn't matter what your family looks like. Connection, attachment is so important. So, my message to you, because you're going to get to see me at the end, I'm afraid, I'm going to be back to sum things up. But my message to you going forwards is you're going to hear from lots of different types of people today. You're going to hear from people from faith groups, people from academies. You're going to hear from people from independent schools. And just as whoever we are, you know, I'm 3 cheers for home ed and 3 cheers for school reform. Whatever reason you're here, just keep your mind open and remember that if whoever we are, want to have our rights protected, we need to respect other organisations, other people to have their rights protected too. So please be kind, clap, celebrate, and remember we are all here for one thing: to stop the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill. Thank you very much.
That first speech was amazing, guys, and after seeing the lineup of speakers for today, I know all the speakers are going to do a fab job.
Right, so the next person we have speaking for you is Judith Antel, who is a homemade parent, and she'll speak on the other issues she's going to speak on.
Hi! So before I speak to you, I'd like you to welcome my amazing son Ben and his amazing friend Addison. Along with lots of other home educated young people, they've made this incredible book. It's called Hidden Voices Speak, available on Amazon. And it actually came out of the protest that we did in March. And it was Addison's idea. So we're just going to hear a bit from him about why he decided it was important and what's wrong with the bill.
How the book came about? Really, I was
Hold it nearer.
like this.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So how the book came about was we were right here at the spot. I was like playing chess with Ben, and we were all just talking about it. And I kind of just felt that our voices wasn't being heard, and through that we came up with the idea of this book here, and I was just like, I mentioned it, and then like 5 days later I was like being told, alright, write your bit, come on, we've got to do this. And through that, we worked together and we created this book, and yeah, and about what it's about is like just saying all of our objections to the bill and getting it out there as a reference point, and also it's quite interesting as well. But yeah,
It was live streamed, Ginger.
Hidden Voices Speak.
I'll come into the group.
Say the name again.
Hidden Voices Speak.
Addison, what, in your opinion, is the biggest problem with the bill as it is currently drafted?
Well, I believe that they don't actually, the way it's written, it's like they don't really understand what home education is,
I actually varied that
they
one, I
write
think.
it in ways which objects to
I
home
think I published
education,
it a lot.
and I feel
It's
like
not
they need
a kind
to
of
check their facts and maybe talk to some home educators actually, because
Amazing.
And Ben, can I ask you the same thing? Ben designed a cover for the book. What, in your opinion, is the biggest problem with the home ed bill, with the children's so-called well-being and schools bill?
Thank you, everyone. The biggest problem, in my opinion, is that for victims of abuse within families, the part of the bill that allows both parents access to the information collected in the register would mean that possibly the information would get passed to both parents.
Thank you. Yeah, very, very terrifying. For me, this is actually the most terrifying aspect of this bill. It's the sheer amount of information that they are intending to collect for the register. Not only the names and addresses of the children, of all their friends or their associates, anyone very loosely worded involved with their learning, but also information which will amount to their daily whereabouts hour to hour. For example, on Monday, child A spends 2 hours at this location doing maths with this friend before walking along this road to do English with these friends at this location. I am not aware of anywhere in the world where such detailed records are kept of the movements of any child or adult. It sounds, doesn't it, like something from a dystopian fantasy novel. It's obviously incredibly intrusive and very close to the line of several of the UN rights of the child, rights like privacy, right to a family life, and when I had a look, 11 or 12 others. But for some children, the prospect of this amount of information being held and shared is even more frightening. As was already flagged by their own MPs to Labour during the House of Commons stages, for children who are survivors of domestic abuse or intrafamilial abuse, the prospects of both parents, having access to this information in reality means that a person who may have abused them in horrendous ways, a person who might be looking at going to jail for life, a person who is certainly not a parent but a criminal, from whom they are currently safe, might suddenly have access to very detailed information about their daily whereabouts. Let me just break this down for a minute. In England today, roughly 1 in 5 children experience domestic abuse, and roughly 1 in 10 experience intrafamilial abuse. So this is probably roughly 3 million children a year. And it's probably underreported due to various taboos. The proposed information sharing in the bill would be that of these 3 million, those who have currently escaped from their abusers would be placed back in danger. Let's just say that again, the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill will be placing children who are currently safe into danger.
No, literally Ginger, I got a cold and I'm not well. I get literally out doing this and not well at the minute.
Their abusers could literally be able to track their every move.
I'm drinking swash non-stop today. Sorry guys,
I'm sure we can see what the consequence of a dangerous criminal, someone who has committed some of the worst crimes known to our society, being able to predict that their victim is due to walk down a particular road at a particular time on a Monday afternoon. What might that criminal do to that child? So I can hear you thinking, surely anyone who's done these things would be safely in jail. Sadly not. Convictions for these type of crimes are less than 2%. And the numbers have got worse rather than better over the last couple of decades. Even when convictions happen, they can take years, during which time the child remains at risk. Children are rarely believed, and there is such widespread, so quote from the Safeguarding Panel Review, there's such widespread denial and deflection in safeguarding institutions that these children, although we actually know where they are rarely believed, rarely helped. And despite police statistics telling us that 99.98 to 99.99% of the time they are telling the truth, more than 98% of their abusers walk free. This bill is another sad and terrifying example of such denial and deflection. Lessons do indeed need to be learned from the heartbreaking death of Sarah Sharif. The same lessons, in fact, that have been needed to have been learned from the many, many reports that have been done over the last 2 decades. Reports with titles such as 19 child homicides, 29 child homicides, protecting children from harm, assessing risk of harm to children and parents in England's private family court,
about that privately.
to name but a few. And the majority of these reports are the government's own.
About that, because that's dreadful.
The government keeps saying, they keep justifying this bill by saying they need to find children. But we don't need to find the children that need our help. They are bravely declaring themselves to the police, in the family courts, and to social services every single day of the week. It is deeply patronizing to say that they need to be found. What they need is to be believed, to be respected, and to be taken seriously. And for, to quote again, a very tiny minority of these children who might be home educated, they need to be allowed to stay in the fragile safety that they have created for themselves, and not to have that safety smashed by poorly thought through laws which give their abusers access to their data, basically give them an opportunity to watch them from the shadows, or worse. The Child Safeguarding Review Panel found no evidence that home education was a safeguarding risk. It found that suicide and its causes, which I know Jen knows more about than I do, needed our attention. And it found that domestic abuse and intrafamilial abuse needed our attention, rather than, to quote, the current institutional denial and deflection that it describes. So, to borrow words from Ella Rose, one of the other entries in this brilliant book, Dear Mr. Government, and then in my own, does it really make sense to monitor 81,000 people who don't need monitoring, some of whom you will place in great danger through that monitoring? Or would it make more sense, if you have the money, to spend the time and funding instead making sure that the 3 million children who actually do need your help, who are actually already asking for your help, who you do not need to find, actually get that help? If you have some money to spend, please spend it in the right place. It's time to stop playing the hero, covering up your own mistakes, and actually be the hero and save the children who genuinely need you to step up. To return to Ella Rose, bye-bye, Mr. Government. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Well done. That was great. Well done. Yes. Yes.
Right, so we next have Feluso, who, if you're based in London, is probably very familiar to you. Feluso is a qualified teacher, education consultant and a community organiser, and she home educates her 3 daughters and founded Knowledge Privileged, an organisation for ambitious children and young people, whether educated at home or otherwise. Go Feluso.
Thank you very much. I think you've been very generous and all of that. The thing is, I didn't quite come prepared like Judith today, and you can imagine how glad I was when Michelle said, actually, you're not going to be following Judith anymore. I was like, yeah, brilliant. But then, about a few seconds later, when she came to me and said, you are following, and I was like, oh, no way. But, well, it's fine. Bear with me. So while I was standing there, the thoughts that came to my mind was, we're all here today, and the main thing we're here for, it's all about one word actually, and I think it's education. And I went on my phone quickly and checked, actually, what's the meaning of education actually? Because I would like to think I know. I haven't been a teacher for almost 20 years, but I thought I'd still check. And I checked, and education is all about the learning, the process of learning and acquiring skills. And in the 5 years or so now since I switched from I still teach and consult in schools all the same. Since I started to home educate my own children, that is all we have been doing, and much more actually. And I know that there are some people here who also still have children in school. I am by no means anti-school. I love school because I think it works for some children. But one thing I know as well from working in schools for almost 20 years is that it doesn't work for every single child. And just like Jess rightfully said before, the very first speaker, we all know that children are unique in their own ways, in the same way that we are unique as well. And because of that, a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't quite work, does it? So in schools, you get lots and lots of children who thrive. In fact, most of the children there do thrive. However, there are some children in school who, for them, the 9 to 3:30 or whatever time their school runs, it's more like a prison for them. And I've seen that firsthand. And sometimes, the times when I was still really in the classroom, sometimes I would wish and think I could do something about it. But as a teacher or head of year or whatever it was, there was really nothing much that you could do about it. And that was quite crushing in a way. And sometimes people would say to me, Falusa, listen, you're taking this too personally, you're going to burn yourself out, you can't take it too much to heart, you've just got to let it go. But sometimes it can be quite difficult to let that go when you're literally seeing children coming in every single day and you know that that is not really the place for them, that's not where they're meant to be. And that is not also to say that that they're not good at something else, because I think one of the things that changed my perspective about what education really is and the form that that should take, most importantly, was a day when someone said something to me and said, you could have a fish for so many years and be trying to teach the fish to climb a wall, and the fish will go through all of its life because it's never going to be able to do it. So the fish will go through all of its life and think it's just stupid, when all you needed to do was put that fish in water and it will just thrive. Better than the monkeys climbing the tree and all of that, and then it'll believe in itself that it's actually good at doing something. And that in a way changed my perspective. From the day that I had that, I sort of saw things in a different light. And then there was a day when, because in my school, I have a project in my school where I got the children to have children in a college mentor them, so that they saw. So we would sometimes take children down from school to go to this college, and they'll do things with them, teach them all different sorts of things, really. So it was really good for the children in the college as well, because they felt like they were responsible for younger ones, and our younger ones were gaining from that experience as well. And there was a child in one of the classes who really couldn't do anything. In maths, he couldn't really do it. Writing, he just couldn't do it. There really wasn't much. And he will be on the table with a TA, and you can tell that all these children sometimes they'll be like, oh, miss, you know, I'm stupid anyway. And you have to say, no, you're not actually. You're not. Just because you cannot do this, there might be other things that you can do. We just need to find out what your genius is and all of that. So this particular boy on this day, we went to this school, to this college, and when we got there, they were having a lesson on weaving. And so we all sat down, we were going to stay and do this lesson with them. We sat down, the teacher was teaching us how to weave, and after watching that for about 15 minutes, I still couldn't do it to save my life, really. And everyone, we were all struggling. And this boy sat down there, and, you know, just stood there watching the lady. And when the lady said, well, who would like to demonstrate? And he put his hands up, and I thought, oh my gosh, okay, well, yeah, that's fine, yeah, go have a go. And he went to the table, and he literally did every single thing just in the same way that the professional weaver had actually done it. And we were just really, really amazed. And for him as well, that was a serious win, because they felt that at last he's actually found something that he can do that Mrs. Odechiyu couldn't do and none of the other children could do. And how that felt for him on that day, I had to literally get some of the people in school out into a different room, because I was literally in tears, because I really thought, my gosh, how is it now? And, you know, neither by the time we got back to school, you know, I was really like, yes, you know, we've got to make a change. We've got to change how we do this. All these children that we think don't really do much, there's actually things that they're good at. We just need to find what they're good at. And then you're met with, well, the point is that when Ofsted comes, these are not the things they're looking for. And all of that just gets you so deflated that you're thinking, what am I even doing here? What am I really, you know, what is this really all about? And it gets you really, really started to think about what you're doing, about your perspective in life, and also about your own children as well that you've left in other places. But for that boy, I'm just glad that for that day, he got that feeling of actually being someone who can teach others what to do, because he then became the instructor and he showed all of us how to do it. I still couldn't do it in the end, but at least some of the other children in the class were able to do it. And it's just things like that that gets us really, really thinking that environment does really, really matter. And for some children, the walls of a school might not quite be where they need to be to thrive. It might be that they need to be in forest school. They need to be in the garden, in the park, just playing all around, and from that or through that, learn as well. For some, the walls and the confinement of a classroom is fine for them, but that doesn't work for every child. And that's why when I saw the bill, I started to really think. I think that because all this while I've always thought that in this country we're actually very, very privileged, because there are other parts of the world, even in Europe, where they're not really able to do what we're able to do. And I think that we've got to give it a go to make sure that we do as much as we can to preserve this for children for as much as we can do. And most of the time when you talk about home education, what comes to people's minds can be quite mind-blowing, because I've actually even seen lords and MPs and doctors and consultants and surgeons really say, if your child is home educated, how do they do their GCSEs? They'll never be able to do their GCSEs. They'll never be able to go to university. They will be isolated all by themselves with no social skills. And for those of us here who are home educators, we know that that is so, so far from the truth. Because when it comes to home education, it's everything that they think it's not. And you've just got to really, really maybe humble yourself, I think, to really come in and check with the people who are actually doing it for you to know what it's all about. Because on the surface, it looks, and it's quite difficult for people to understand, and I quite understand that to an extent why they will be confused, because when we started, everyone around us thought we were crazy, really. They literally thought, you've definitely lost the plot. Why would you take them out of school? Why would you do that? You're going to ruin their lives. You're going to destroy them. They'll never be able to go to university. And now it's people now coming to us to now ask, how does it actually work? Tell me. Only because now they've seen the results. They've seen a child getting ready to go to Oxford University to study medicine. They've seen children doing GCSEs in year 9, when the rest of their mates will only be doing it in 2 years' time. And that's only one result that you can get from being home educated. There are also other children, because when it comes to children, and even life in general, achievement and success is not the same. It's not the same outlook for everyone. And for some children, even being able to wake up in the morning and be able to independently walk to the shop and do some shopping and get the change right, that is success on its own. And it's just all about what success looks like for every child and for every family, in every situation, for different situations as well. And I think that with the bill, just like Judith also said, there's so many other things that really, really need to be looked into, that need to be, I know that most of us would prefer for it to be scrapped. I would prefer that. But I think time will tell how far we can really push for that to be the outcome that we get. But one thing we've got to really, really fight for is that whatever they're thinking they're going to do, whatever the outcome is, we need to preserve these opportunities, this privilege for children, for them to be able to continue to be able to do this. So the children whose school is not the right place for can still get an education within the environment that works for them, so that every child can actually thrive, which is what we're talking about. And even before I go, just the final thing I want to say is the fact that we've got people always sitting down in rooms discussing what the future or what the path of home education should be like. And most of the time, there are people who have absolutely no idea about what it's all about. And I think it's so stupid. It doesn't quite make any sense at all. Because I think in any other sphere of life, it wouldn't work if they're trying to decide who should, how surgeons should be conducted. They wouldn't get accountants and carpenters and judges to come in and talk. Who would they call to come in? They will call doctors to come in and talk. So I think if anyone's going to be sitting down anywhere to discuss what home education should look like, or how it should be monitored, or whatever they're thinking, if there are no home educators at the table, I think it's all pointless. And that's really what I think. And I'm not sure what you think about that. So I think it's for us to have a mind about preserving everything that we've got, so that it's not all stolen or taken away from us, all for the benefit of our children who I think just deserve that and so much more. Thank you.
Thank you, Felicio. No. It's Judith.
Not sure I was stand here.
I would stand in the middle. In the middle.
No, that's fine. It's where you're comfortable standing.
Wherever you're comfortable.
So next we have Judith Nemeth, who is from... Oh, just lost my page. From the Values Foundation, and she also runs her own educational consultancy for parents and teachers. I'll take it away.
Good afternoon, everybody. I run an organisation, an NGO, called the Values Foundation for Faith and Families in Education. Our offices are just around the corner in Old Queen Street, and we advocate for anything to do with faith and families. And this bill is absolutely against faith and families. I came across a wonderful adage a while ago that education is what's left when all that's learnt has been forgotten. And the generation of homeschooled children, or children who are given a strong religious education, come out as fine, stable, serving people of the community, who know their identity, who know who they are, who have strong values. You hear values bandied around over the road there many, many times. But where do those values come from? Those values are rooted in religious values. And those are the moral values that keep our democracy going. I was blessed, I have been blessed, we have been blessed with a very large family. And I envy those of you who are noble enough to home educate. Because I couldn't wait till the end of the holidays when all the children would go back to school. But you did it. And I know these people, these adults who've been home educated, and they are so sound and solid. And did you see that book that these children created? How many school children write books, compile books? It's a fantastic, fantastic opportunity that we have in England to home educate if we want to. The bill, as it has been written, is draconian. The government wants to make parents into criminals. They want to fine them for not sending them to the school or to home educate that they want. That is outrageous. And then we hear that the courts are 5 years behind in their hearings. So if you have to take a parent to court, what are you going to do in the meantime? You're turning children onto the street, which is a safeguarding issue that the government is trying to avoid. This is not about safeguarding. Part one of the bill goes somewhere to help the joined up thinking that is desperately needed, that led to the death of that poor child. But that wasn't the result of home education. That was the result of the social services not following up and not doing the right thing. I also run an academy. I took over an academy of 3 schools 4 years ago. One of the schools had been inadequate for 7 years. Last month we had an Ofsted inspection and we got good. Academies work. Last week, 2 weeks ago, I was in the debate in the House of Lords where Lord Nash humiliated the government. You brought in academies. You started academies. The Labour government did. It was a good idea. Because when you have an executive head or a CEO to whom all the schools are accountable, they have to improve. If you bring in some guy from the DFE round the corner from RISE, from Raising Standards, they're not going to listen. Yeah, thank you very much for your help and goodbye. We need academies. Academies work. And in fact, it was mentioned in the most recent Ofsted report that the sharing best practice is what helped them to get there. I know you're going to hear more about academies from Catherine, but all I want to say is keep up the pressure. Write to your MP. Make appointments with your MP. They have to know the dangers of this bill. Thank you very much.
Ginger, that was good action for you guys to do, WMP.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Tom Rogers from an organisation called Parent Power. Have you heard of it? If not, look it up on the internet, parentpower.family, because we were founded to support you as parents, to campaign and fight for your natural rights, and to provide you with support and advocacy. And we're standing right with you in this battle against the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill. Thank you. So the reason that I think we're all here today is that we love our children. Is that right? Yes, absolutely. No one loves our own children like we do. And you would have thought that that kind of natural, sacred, God-given bond that we have with our children, that would be enough to show and demonstrate that we're the ones that should be entrusted with decisions about their well-being and their future. But what is natural and right and just doesn't seem to register with this government, or their predecessors for that matter. It doesn't fit in with the kind of cultural Marxist mindset. They seem to think that our children are the property of the state, that we actually need their permission to take responsibility for our own children. They think that we need to put ourselves forward to state interrogation before being granted the privilege of teaching our own children in our own homes. And then, you know, we can be refused if, for whatever arbitrary reason, the local authority sees fit to decide that we're not suitable to teach our own children, and face punitive fines and even imprisonment if we don't comply. This cannot be right. And as we're hearing today about all the other attacks on the school system, it seems that the government doesn't want any other choice for us apart from the, you know, monolithic state-owned comprehensive school at the end of the road with a curriculum that's tightly controlled by the government. That seems to be the only choice that they want for us. So, isn't it ironic that, you know, a political class that bangs on so much about diversity just seems to want, hell-bent on imposing such uniformity on all of us? A government that just has a political class that has no regard for different faiths, beliefs, value systems, or even the different learning styles of our different children. And for centuries in our nation, that natural right of parents to be regarded as the primary educators of our children, that's been a very sacrosanct principle in this country. In fact, it's been the hallmark of dictatorships and totalitarian regimes to deny parents the right to home educate. And and to have a school curriculum that's very tightly controlled by the government. And as one very infamous Austrian said, "He alone who owns the youth gains the future." And this state takeover of parenting has really accelerated in recent years. So in 2017, parents lost the long-established right to withdraw their children from sex education as a result of this new subject, that new rebranded sex education that was brought in, relationships, sex and health education. And the government showed its contempt for parents by only granting them the right to request withdrawal from certain parts of that new overreaching subject. So in 2018, we founded Parent Power as a response to these threats to our natural parental rights. And we've since supported countless brave parents, sometimes at their wits' end, trying to protect their children from learning which they regard as confusing or harmful or just premature. We've supported their challenges to their schools, local authorities, dioceses, and even taken their fights to the Department for Education. And it's been no accident that the rates of children being home educated has increased substantially since they brought in compulsory RSE. And of course, the state doesn't want to lose any children from their control and influence, so that's why they're going after home education now. So compulsory RSHE, that was brought in on the grounds of safeguarding. It was argued that it was necessary to equip children and empower them so they could keep themselves safe from abuse. And it was necessary to prepare children for life in modern Britain, whatever that means. And the attack on home education has been based on the same spurious grounds. So exploited, as we've heard from Judith, the tragic case of Sarah Sharif, despite the very obvious failings of the social services and the family courts in that tragic case. And one thing is absolutely clear, that persecuting normal, conscientious, home educating parents, that would not have saved Sarah Sharif. Absolutely. Yeah. And at Parent Power, our support of parents fighting RSE in their schools, that's really shown the dangers of vague, badly worded legislation that's loaded in favour of the authorities and the schools and against parents. For instance, parents were supposed to be consulted on the content of RSE, but as we've seen, all those parental consultations, they were just mere lip service. And without the bargaining chip of the right of withdrawal, then those parental consultations are pretty useless anyway, because the school has the power to just do whatever it wants, regardless of what the parents think. And sometimes parents have really felt that they're banging their heads against a brick wall, but we have seen some remarkable breakthroughs. We've supported parents who have achieved many small concessions and many actually quite big victories, where they've managed to get their children withdrawn from PSHE classes, for instance, where persistence has really paid off. And sometimes those successful challenges have even impacted the culture of the whole school. And collectively, all these small victories and small fights at a local level that parents have been engaged in with their school, they've also had a real impact on the bigger picture. Even the turn in the tables politically, to the point where significant parental rights were being reasserted and secured under the Sunak government, such as the right for parents to review teaching materials, and also a very significant backlash against transgender ideology in schools. So it's true that we've had somewhat of a setback now as a result of Labour's loveless landslide, but we know, thank God, that that's not necessarily reflective anymore of the cultural direction of our country, and all the signs are that that regime is actually going to be very short-lived. So I just wanted to therefore end on a really positive note that persistent and courageous challenge can and does pay off. So your stand, no matter how small, will make a difference. And whatever happens in the wake of this bill, it's not the end of the story, it's just the beginning. And we all know that our children are worth fighting for, and for their sake, we must and we will prevail. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Catherine Berbel Singh. I'm known as the strictest headmistress in Britain. And when Michelle wrote to me, she's a home educator, I'm the strictest headmistress in Britain, I gave her palpitations, and she wrote and said, I write with great trepidation because I don't normally agree with anything you have to say. However, we have one enemy in common, and that is Bridget Phillipson. Why is Bridget our enemy at the moment? Because I believe in change. I believe it is possible for people to make mistakes and then change their minds. And all of us who believe in children believe that, because children make mistakes over and over and over again, and we help them get better. We do that in our schools, and we do that in our homes. One of the reasons I imagine Michelle would have thought, oh my goodness, should I really write to her, is that I believe in schools. So she thought, well, I'm a home educator. What will Catherine think of me? And I have to say to all of you parents here, more power to you! It is absolutely wonderful to see you all loving your children, fighting for your children, educating your children. That is what we want for our children. We want our children to be looked after. We want our children to be cared for. We want parents like you who are willing to march outside and fight for your right to be able to educate your children. When Michelle said to me that the changes that are being made in this bill for home educators, that if you all aren't filling out these forms every 2 weeks and make a mistake, that you could be jailed up to 1 year. We have lost our minds as a society when we have such contempt for parents that we would jail them for educating their children. When Keir Starmer says, oh my goodness, adolescents, we've got to get all the children to watch this. As if the children don't know. They don't need to watch adolescence. They are living it. And Keir Starmer and Bridget Phillipson are totally out of touch with what is happening to our children on the ground. I was speaking to some of you earlier, and it broke my heart, because some of you as parents were saying, but nobody's listening to us. Nobody cares. But I'm telling you, There's a whole load of us who are listening. There's a whole load of us who care. People are at home today looking after their children. People are in parks teaching their children. Not everyone could necessarily come out here today. And not everyone has a voice on their own. But when we all keep shouting and keep making noise, I tell you, there is talk right now of Bridget Phillipson being ousted. That has only happened because of the noise that we have made. Each voice matters. Each of you matters. Parents matter, schools matter, and more than ever, children matter. And that is why we're here. You know, I said to my staff, why do we do these things? Why do we shout? Why do we want our voices heard? Because we want to be able to say we did something. When they tried to take our freedoms, when they tried to stop us from educating our children, we said something. We stood up and we did something. You know, they're trying to stop us school leaders from being able to employ unqualified teachers because Bridget Phillipson says they're not qualified, therefore they can't teach. All of you are teaching your children. You are just as qualified as any of us. Those stupid pieces of paper that they say make somebody a certificate makes you qualified to be able to teach a child. It is so contemptuous of parents. It is so contemptuous of us as human beings. We are able to teach our children, whether we are parents, whether we are teachers at the beginning of our careers or at the end of our careers. I find it hilarious that they say they're not qualified when Miss Phillipson herself has never run anything, never built anything, never done anything, and she says she's qualified to tell us how we should educate our children. She wants to get involved in the minutiae of telling us how many items of branded uniform we can have. Should they have 3 branded items or should they have 4 branded items? As opposed to allowing us school leaders to decide. This is a power grab from central government. These are power-hungry people in Parliament who don't think that we should have the right to do what is right for our children in our care, whether we are parents or school leaders. And when we stand up and say something, we keep saying it. This bill will be in the Lords now, and then it will go to Parliament again. We are hoping for amendments, and we are hoping that those amendments will be accepted. What makes it more likely is the more noise we make. We made noise today, but today is only one step. We need to keep making noise throughout the summer. We need to keep going. People need to be writing to their MPs. Get your friends to write to their MPs. Get everyone you know to make as much noise as possible. You must let them know we will not go silently into the night. We will not back down. My message to them is I will never stop. You must never stop. We need to keep on going and make as much noise as we can because they will hear us. They already hear us, okay? Why are they talking about ousting her? Because they are hearing the noise we are making. So don't think your voice doesn't count. Don't think you don't matter. We came out today to show them that children matter. Schools matter. Parents matter. And our freedoms matter. And so, as I always end with the great words of Maximus from Gladiator, hold the line, stay with me, what we do in life echoes in eternity. Thank you.
Fantastic.
It's a great pleasure to follow such impassioned speeches which communicate the strength of feeling that is present in all of us here today. There are those who think that I look like Dumbledore, and I don't think that the bill would allow for Hogwarts to actually come into being, because the kids are much too independent. My parents came to this country as refugees in 1938, escaping the fascist Anschluss in Austria. Why did they leave Austria? Because they couldn't be who they wanted to be. There was no genocide, there was no mass extermination, but there was a totalitarian regime which crammed the style of people in Austria, including Jews, and didn't allow people to be themselves, didn't allow individuality. Individuality is key. When God created the world, He created one family unit, Adam and Eve, and their children. There was no school. There was no state. There was parents teaching their children. And then came Abraham. And as it says in Genesis, that Abraham was commanded to teach his children ways of justice and kindness. In other words, education is about producing decent, kind, productive children and human beings. We are now in May. When you think of May, you think of a ship called the Mayflower, which sailed from our shores across the Atlantic and founded what is today the United States of America. A very successful country. With all its drawbacks, it's still a very, very successful country. And why did they leave Britain? Because they were not allowed to be individuals. They were not allowed to be themselves. They were not allowed to believe what they believe and pass this on to their children. All of us here are gathered because we care, because we know that at the end of the day the buck stops with us. We are responsible for our children, not the state. The state exists in order to help us educate our children, but not to replace us as far as our children are concerned. We have a duty towards our children, and we have to stand up to the state, to anyone who wants to deny us our integral right, our inherent right to be parents, because we bring children into the world. When we bring children into the world, we are told that this is an individual matter for the mother. It's her child. So how comes after the child is born, suddenly it belongs to the state? No, it belongs to the parents. And the parents are responsible, and the parents have the privilege to educate their children that they should be good, decent human beings and good citizens. We must never give up. We must never despair. When we bring a child into the world, it is something of joy. It's something to celebrate. Life is something to be celebrated. And therefore, we are here today to remind ourselves that we are not alone. That we have many allies and many people who stand with us. And ultimately, please God, we will succeed in overcoming adversity and make sure that there is a positive, happy, constructive future for our children and for all children. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Goodness me, what two people to have to follow on a platform. Thank you so much. Absolutely terrific. Big cheer for all the children today. Hey! And thank you to all the organisers. Thank you, Michelle, for a terrific effort. It's great that you brought such a diverse bunch of people together to talk about our children. I'm honestly staggered to have to follow such an array of people and a delicious commentary that I've got to follow on. It's very difficult, but so many of you said things that I heartily agree with. I'm part of Education Not Taxation. My name's David, and we've been going for a year and a half in opposition to the education tax, which is something that no country in the world has done, no country in Europe has done apart from Greece. Failed dismally, lasted a few months. The Economist magazine described it as causing absolute chaos. And being, like all sensible people, evidence-based, we'd like to follow that example by not doing it. I don't want to talk too much today about the education tax. I'll touch on it in a little more detail, but I do want to talk about what unites us all as parents, and I'm going to wrap up with an idea. It might not be obvious what fee-paying parents are doing on this platform with all of you wonderful home education people, and with Catherine from the wonderful Michaela School. We're here for our children. We're just parents here for our children. We'd walk on broken glass for our children. And we do it again. And we do it every day. But not only that, because we all know that, when we would do that, when we walk on broken glass for our children, it's a good thing for a society. It's not a bad thing. It's not a thing that those people over there should be jealous of. It's a good thing. It's a good thing for everybody. It's what parents are supposed to do. It's how humans have evolved over the last 750,000 years since we came down out of the trees. It's what we're supposed to do. What economists say about education, they say that the social benefit regardless who pays, and the social benefit regardless who's in charge. It does not need to be done by the state. It does not need to be paid for by the state. What it needs is children being raised with love and with care and with the support of parents. What economists also say is that when children are educated outside the state, it frees up the resource for the state to put it where it's most required. It's not all about money, but I don't think we should lose sight of the fact that when we home educate or when we independently educate, we are allowing the state to concentrate on what it really ought to be doing. Have a listen to this. Have a listen to this, I'll tell you where it's from. Not my words. The bourgeois claptrap about the family and education, about the relation of parent and child, becomes all the more disgusting. The care and education of the children must become only a public affair. Anybody recognise that? Hands up. From the Communist Manifesto. Complete nonsense, of course. Complete nonsense. Again, the benefit of parents willing to walk on broken glass for our children in all settings, doing what's best for children. Very briefly on the education tax. Fee-paying parents are not the stereotypes that have been sold to the country. 25% of fee-paying parents come from below average household incomes. And that's not our data. That's the evidence that was provided by formal advisors from the Treasury to the government. Kept tightly under wraps, of course, that advice. Tight secret. It only came out in the court documents because the government was obliged to disclose it. We are not all gazillionaires living in gold-plated houses. We just support good schools. We support good schools for us. We'd also say to the government, to Bridget Phillipson, we reject, or to use her language, we do not accept the zero-sum view that she holds, that is, because we have schools that suit us and because we pay school fees, and therefore we have disregard and a lack of love and a lack of care for our neighbours, our colleagues, our other friends and family, and for the rest of the country. We just want good schools. It's not zero-sum. Love and care here does not mean neglect there, unless society wants it to. And we're part of society. We're part of society, and we pay our way, and we contribute to state education, as do all of you home educators, and we think we should do so alongside the rest of society. We don't think we should be doing it instead of the rest of society.
No, it doesn't. It's a signal.
Something that you'll hear said by people often shortly before they insist that the state must own and must run all of education. Education's a right, not a privilege. Education's a right, not a privilege. I'm sure we've all heard that. Sure.
I've got 4K.
It's in the European Convention on Human Rights. What people are very silent on is the bit that comes after. Because the second part of that sentence, from Article 2, Part 1 of the European Convention on Human Rights, you can all look it up, it says there is a right to family choice. There is a right for parents to choose education. There is a right for all of us as parents to choose education unhindered by the government. There is also a right for parents and teachers to offer education unhindered. The government's role is to encourage and support. And if the government can't encourage and support, at least it is obliged to leave us alone.
It will be out as of Tuesday/Wednesday.
So in education, not taxation, we reject all of the suspicious stereotypes, all of the stereotypes that have been used to paint fee-paying parents. We are not millionaires, we are not snobs, we are not seeking to do down state education or anybody else's children. We support our children, of course. We walk on broken glass for them, but we support all children. We're not suspicious of Catherine and the amazing work that she does at the Michaela School, which suits those parents and it suits those children, and she does an amazing job, and she's seen as a figure of suspicion. And we're not suspicious of home educators and all of the vile stereotypes that have been sold about many of you. Blah, blah, nonsense. I gave you the quote from Karl Marx earlier on. You may have heard a quote from somebody called Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell is an American economist I'm slightly more fond of than Karl Marx. And see if this rings more favourable bells with all of you. Thomas Sowell wrote, "Schools exist for the education of children. Schools do not exist to provide ironclad jobs for teachers, billions of dollars in union dues, monopolies for educational bureaucracies, a guaranteed market for teachers' college degrees, nor least, and this is the best bit, nor a captive market for indoctrinators." This country needs a little bit more of Thomas Sowell and a little bit less of Karl Marx. So I'm going to wrap up now, and thank you very much for your time, and thank you again to the organisers. I think we need a powerful voice for choice. in the form of a parents' union. Perhaps it's Parents' Power. I hadn't heard of Parents' Power. Now I have. We'll be in touch. But we are speaking up as Education Not Taxation. We're speaking up for the abolition of taxing education, the abolition of taxing parents wanting to do their best for the children in a way that suits us. We also all support free schools and academies. We support the Montessori movement. We support religious schools, whom we just heard from. And we support Michaela, and we support home education. We need a voice for choice. Parents' right to choose what's best for our children. One of the very sad things that I have learned by my work at Education Not Taxation is the bucket loads of money and power that swill around forwarding the Karl Marx agenda, which we've heard enough of. We've heard enough of over the last several months. It's heavily funded. Academia, think tanks, taxpayers' money to act against parents' interests and to act against parents seeking choice of how to raise and how to educate our children. So my suggestion will be, we do need a unified and effective voice for parents, and we need to be willing to provide an organisation, and we need to furnish it with money. I'm afraid I can't see how enthusiastic amateurs, for all of the efforts and skills and various talents that some of us are able to bring, I struggle to see how we can be effective in opposing this statist expansion of control over us and our families. So I believe we will need some form of more coherent organisation, and I'm very interested in suggestions for what that looked like. Perhaps this march is indeed the start of something. I'm going to wrap up, and thank you again so much. Here's for the children!
Right, we have a guest has popped in. They have to fly off quickly. So welcome Michael Charles to the stage.
Hello everyone. Some of you might know me, some of you may follow me. I'm a lawyer. I've been practicing in the law of education for the last 30-something years, and really I don't think I've ever prompted myself to come before Parliament, the place where we stand for democracy, where laws are made, and feel so opposed to a piece of law. And they call it the Wellbeing Act, the Children Wellbeing and Skills Act. What on earth has it got to do with well-being? You see, the difference is, when you're sitting in an office and you're reading documents, you look at policy, you're persuaded by policy, but you don't look into the eyes of the parents. You don't look into the eyes of the children, because those children's eyes tell you something. They tell you that things are not always working out, that school and a one-size-fits-all approach is not really always the right approach, and there's something else that's needed. This law, if it were to become law, is what I've described it on social media as abusive. It's a raid on parental rights. And it's not just a raid on the home education community, it's a raid on the SEN community. It's a raid on women who feel too scared to speak out because they're worried that their rights will be lost if they speak out to the councils and say that they're suffering from domestic abuse. Because if they do so, it will trigger a Section 47 investigation. And we all know that a Section 47 investigation is one of the criteria, one of the grounds that can be utilised to prevent someone from having a freedom of choice. So it's the choice of being abused or losing your autonomy. That's no choice. I would be saying, if I was in government, what are we doing? Is this a responsible piece of legislation? Is it responsible for data sharing, for records to actually prompt local authority intervention purely based on algorithm, not based on need? And what is it when you can say that you know your child best, And yet, someone sitting in office, a stranger, can say that they know what your child actually needs, because they will decide what is in fact better. Because the legislation empowers the council to have the discretion to decide whether or not you can continue to home educate in certain circumstances. We all know that. And whereas a defence existed before, the defence of suitable education, it's no longer the question anymore. It's going to be down to whether or not school is in fact better. A decision taken by a person who I called a stranger when I wrote about this on social media. And I'm delighted that my post, when I explained that this legislation, I believe, is the most dangerous legislation, I was delighted to see on my analytics that 1.5 million people viewed that post. Because it is the most dangerous legislation. Where do you actually see legislation come in and actually see governments roll back from the legislation and the rights that they've taken away? In the 30-odd years that I practiced law and education, what I've seen is a growth of rights, believe it or not. Because before the 1996 Act, there needed to be more to help children with special educational needs and provision for parents to elect and make a preference. So we saw the 96 Act, and then after that we saw the 2014 Children and Families Act. That was adding to rights. This legislation, if it were to become legislation, is taking away rights. Taking away rights that we've had and we've fought for the last 20-odd years. It's dangerous. And don't believe the rhetoric. Don't believe the rhetoric that this is about safeguarding children. Because children in school, of course school is good for many children, but it's not good for all children. And children who are bullied, children who are suffering because they can't cope with the sensory demands of an environment, children who are socially anxious, vulnerable children, depressed children. Those rights, those children, I've warned, there's a real danger that these children will lose their lives. And I'm not actually being dramatic. I really aren't. Because in the 30 years that I've practiced law, I've had the unfortunate experience of suicide. And I believe that the suicide among children will grow if you force them, shoehorn them into environments that are not good for them. So my view is I stand here before Parliament in the hope that someone will listen. Eventually, someone will listen. Because believe you me, friends here today, this, in my view, is a line in the sand. This is where government have encroached into the rights of parents beyond that I've ever seen in my 30 years of practicing law. And I say no. And believe you me, when I say no, I mean no. Because I'm looking for the right candidate. Because when the right candidate comes forward that ticks all the necessary boxes, I'm going to take, if I can, this government to court. Because it's an infringement on rights. The Human Rights Act came in. People believe it's fundamentally changing, giving people opportunities and powers. And this legislation sweeping in, removing, disregarding those rights. Your freedom of choice, your freedom to choose what school is best for your child, your freedom to be a parent. That's not rights. That's called sabotage. That's called abandonment. And I would call it downright abuse. So it's not a job for a lawyer generally to come in here and talk about politics. It really isn't. My job is to interpret the law, to tell you what I think you can do and what you can't do. But one thing that I find so distressing as a lawyer in the years that I've practiced is that it's all very well parliamentarians saying they want votes, but they don't look into the eyes of the children. They don't look into the eyes of the parents. And they don't sit in my seat when I say to them there's nothing I can do. Because believe you me, this legislation, if it were to become legislation, is going to empower the state beyond that which I've ever seen in my experience today. And believe you, friends, we must all say no together. Thank you very much.
So guys, halfway through that speech, the Palestinians showed up.
That's right, can I turn this down a bit because it's going to be too loud for Ridley and he's getting overwhelmed.
Dara, can you turn the mic down a little bit?
We need it turned down a bit because Ridley's such a noise, I noticed. Come on in, Ridley, let's do it. Hello? Is that too loud for you? Are you sure? Alright, can you hold that for me while I speak? Hi everyone, I'd like to start off with the ignorance, misconceptions, misinformation and fear that many people have when it comes to home education. We are constantly asked by scholars and the general public, who monitors what you are doing? Don't people come in to check on you? Why is it automatically assumed that because we home educate our children, they are somehow missing and hidden from society? That we are doing something illegal and dangerous? Why should our children be in schools that are not accommodating them properly? Schools that are falsely stating to parents that their send children do not need an EHCP because they don't want funding ring-fenced to that child. And guess what? They are now thinking of scrapping what little accommodations they do give them in mainstream school by removing EHCPs altogether. That's not to mention the amount of ableism, restraint and gaslighting that happens in many educational settings. Society tells us loudly every day that our autistic send children won't make it, using the assumption that they are not worth investing in, as they will never pay taxes. I was saying this way before R.F. Kennedy let loose with his sick-inducing speech on autistic kids, and that they will never fit in. At home we can accommodate our children. They can learn at their own pace, when and how they wish to, and they are fully accepted for who they are. Our kids may not fit in. They smash the mould. They rotate it and fill it with rainbows, unicorns, daydreams, monster trucks, rockets, and a sprinkle of creativity and happiness. Our children's classroom is the world and everything in it. Learning in the middle of the woods, on a canal boat, on trains, planes, in farms, on tractors, in theatres and libraries, cooking, baking, gardening, exploring, and lying on a trampoline with hot chocolate and blankets under the stars. Their learning is constant. There are people that will not understand us, and that's okay. But if they make the mistake of passing this bill and try to monitor us, control us, or insist our children go into the factory settings of school, they will have pandemonium on their hands, because we won't go quietly. We will fight for our children's rights, and we won't stop. Because when you are the parent of a send child, it's what we are used to having to do. So Bridget Phillipson, a message from all of us here: bollocks to your proposed view, and bollocks to our government who refuse to accommodate and invest in our amazing kids. Thank you from myself on behalf of our autistic-led organisation, Autistic Inclusive Meets. I have a young autistic young person here who'd like to say something as well, if that's all right. This is Ridley.
Hi, my name's Ridley, and first off, I just want to say my own experience with home education. School setting in almost any shape or form was just not right for me, and I went to school for 4 years and it just did not suit me at all. I learned almost nothing, and now since being home ed I've been able to learn about British and American politics, and it's been amazing. But I want to ask some questions to the government. So I've read the bill, I've read part of the bill, and the most distressing part of this bill is the fact that the local authorities, if they review a child's home ed situation, they can give, and they can say, your child is not receiving a good education and they can give them a school attendance order. This is ridiculous because the local authority does not have to explain further. They do not have to give a reason why that child has to go to school. They do not, and they definitely won't understand the situation that the child is in, their previous school experiences, their special needs. It's ridiculous. And you can say, the government can say that we are investing in, throwing money at special needs, but throwing money at education and throwing money at special needs is not the only thing you can do. In the long run, it will not provide the results you're looking for. You've promised radical change, so deliver that. Do not take the system further.
Yes! Well said.
Thank you. And finally, one last thing. You pledged to hire 6,500 new teachers. Where are those teachers going to come from, and how are you going to ensure that they're going to stay in the schools because of the overcrowded classes, thanks to your VAT on private schools, which makes sure that a bunch of kids from independent schools are going to come to the state, and how are you going to make sure that they're going to be paid adequately? I'm not going to quit halfway through. And then finally, I've rambled on for a bit too long, but finally, one thing the government should do is look at the independent sector and ask the question, why are so many people with special educational needs and disabilities, why are so many of those people going to independent schools rather than the state sector, and how can we learn from them? Thank you. Thank you, Edmund.
Brilliant!
Hello, my name is Sataj, and I've got not too much to say, but in my opinion, I feel like it's important. In my opinion, we should be the ones profiting from our education, not the government. Thank you very much. So yeah, everyone thinks differently, and everyone is different. Everyone learns differently, but what was I gonna say? That they shouldn't tax us for trying to learn differently. They shouldn't try to do that. They are putting tax on schools and like home education, but they're not putting tax on sweet brands such as Jaffa Cakes. Are those more important than schools and the future of this country? The reason that we nominated this Prime Minister was because we thought that they would provide a good future for this country, and we thought that they would make this country better and support this country, but they're not going to do that, and they're going to try to tax the schools and make it worse for a lot of people by ruining the education. Then I don't really think that's good enough. It's not good enough to profit off of schools, and it's not good enough for the country and for the children.
Sorry about that, that was a bit awkward. But good afternoon, my fellow activists, freedom fighters, parents, educators, and protectors of truth. Today we are under the lovely British weather, which looks like it's going to pour down soon. So I will try to be quick, but I must say, no to force, no to fear. We want learning, that's sincere. Keep your bill out of here. My name is Omer, and I'm proud to be an education and politics youth engagement officer with the Salam Project CIC, located in London and Manchester. We work at the heart of Black, African, Afro communities and Muslim communities in London and Manchester, and today we stand united with all of you. Thank you for attending. We are here because this bill threatens the very core of all our values. Our freedom to educate, our right to parent, and our power to protect our children. Let's make one thing clear. This isn't just about education. This is about freedom, dignity, choice, and the future of our children. Now listen, there's no official data showing exactly how many black or Muslim families are choosing home education, but we know what's happening. We see it in our work, our communities, our homes. More and more families are turning to home education, not to hide their children, but to empower them, to offer an education rooted in culture, history, faith, and our values, where children learn who they are, not just how to fit in. And now they want to take it away. The bill is a breach. They sell, control, and justify. But children thrive with parents' guide. The so-called Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill. It's a Trojan horse. It says safety, but it really means surveillance. It says well-being, but what does it mean? It means state control. The bill hands local authorities power to dictate what your child learns. Your children. The council want to dictate what your children learn and how they learn it. And it doesn't just stop at the home. This bill will impact our faith institutions too. Mosques, churches, synagogues, community centres, any place where education can happen, religious or cultural, could fall under state inspection and intervention. This means your Saturday Islamic school, your Sunday church, your evening Quran class, your Black History workshops, all of it could be subject to government oversight, monitored, judged, and possibly shut down if it doesn't meet criteria set by people who don't understand our values. And let's be honest, who do you think they'll target first? Which communities are already misunderstood and over-policed? Our communities. And if we don't comply, they can fine us. They can imprison us. For what? For not agreeing with what they think. For trying to let them control our education. We must resist this attack on our rights as parents, as educators, and faith communities. We say no to state overreach. We say no to criminalizing parents. We say no to the silencing of our religious institutions and cultural voices. We say yes to community-led, spiritually grounded, culturally relevant education. Now I'm going to need all of you to raise your voices, because let me hear you say, power to the parents! Power to the parents! Let's get that a bit louder. Power to the parents! Power to the parents! Power to the people! Power to the people! Power to our faith and our children! Power to our faith and our children! And now, I am an education and politics engagement officer, but first and foremost, I am a voice for justice. And I'm here to say, our children are not just property of the state. Our faith is not a threat. Our voices will not be silenced. Today is just the start of it all. Keep your bill out of here and let our families and institutions breathe free. Thank you.
Yeah, I would love to talk. Was that your son up there with you as well? A friend? Oh, he was...
Hi, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Juliet English. And I just want to say thank you to those who are still here. I know many have had to go because of trains and so on. But if you're home educated or you were home educated, can you just stand up and give a big shout quickly? Okay, let's go. Woo! Woo! Yeah, go shake out all of those, shake your bones out a little bit. Okay, so one of the things that I've been doing for 14 years is I run a conference for home educating parents that is called the Learn Free Conference. And this conference, the whole aim of it is to promote educating your children with boldness and freedom. Freedom from fear, freedom from intimidation, freedom from all the emotional baggage we ourselves carry from our childhood. And that is the message of the Learn Free Conference. The reason I'm telling you right now is because next Saturday is Learn Free Conference in person in Coventry. So please come and join us if you can, because we will continue to have this conversation about this very, very nasty bill. So why am I here today? My children are almost grown up. I have 7 of them that have been home educated since 1998. I won't tell you how old I was because that would give my age away. So, yeah, I still have one who's just finishing off. So, but I am here, even though my children are coming to an end of their home educating journey, and this bill would probably not affect me. I am here because I believe that where there is no legitimate cause for concern, the role of the parent in the child's life should not be of any interest to the government. I don't have to agree with you. I don't have to agree with the way you educate your children. I don't have to believe the same things. But I can still support your right as a parent to choose what is best for your children. For those who have a belief system, as we've heard from others today, we should still be able to raise our children consistently with our beliefs, but we can also recognize that other parents should be able to raise their children according to their beliefs, regardless of what they are, as long as they don't cause any harm to the child. So although this bill is attempting, as I say, attempting to expose wrongdoing or bad practice dressed up as home education, what it will do in practice is create a climate of distrust and suspicion of law-abiding families who choose to educate their children themselves, whether it is for philosophical reasons, religious reasons, or because you had no choice if your child was to get the support they needed. Often these families have already been very badly let down by the education system, as we have heard today. They've been let down by the very systems the government wants them to engage with. Yet they would now receive unwanted, targeted attention for making that choice. This is called discrimination. This is writing prejudice into law. I come from South Africa. I know what prejudice being written into law looks like. It would not be discriminatory if they asked the same information of all other children of every other family. No, it is only home educators that are under the magnifying glass without any evidence needed to justify it. Now, just recently on VE Day, I noticed Bridget Phillipson did a post on social media. She was applauding the contribution that armed forces have made. She said that it is our duty to safeguard the values they sacrificed so much to uphold. Yet we find that she is all too willing to trample all over those very rights and freedoms that were so very hard won at great human cost. All we are asking is that they engage meaningfully with us, that they let us help them find solutions that they might not have thought of. There's a better way to draw up legislation. You can consult with those who stand to be impacted the most and truly hear what they are saying. Thank you. They can look at the independent research so that evidence drives policy rather than the policy driving the evidence, which is something we see a lot of today. You write the policy and then you find the evidence to back it up. You would consult with reputable individuals, charities and organizations that support those that are being legislated for, so that they can understand the lived experiences of stakeholders. You will not get reliable evidence from civil servants who want things made more convenient for them. You will not get reliable evidence from companies or organizations that stand to gain from policies, whether it be through serving their agenda, financial gain, or convenience. If ever there was a time to come together to push back and raise the alarm as parents, educators, charities and organizations supporting parents, that time is now. This is for the children, now and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Lois. Is Lois about? Ah.
Oh, this one, yay!
Hello. Oh, hi. This is a bit out of my comfort zone, so please be kind. I was nominated to come and speak about the school fines campaign, so I'm not going to speak directly about the bill, but obviously this is included in the erosion of parents' rights, basically. These are my two lovelies. When the Fight School Fines campaign was started in June of 2024 by Natalie Elliott, a mum of 2 special needs children, there was a simple message: family time is not a crime. At its heart, this campaign began as a call for common sense, asking that families be allowed just 10 days of term time leave without fear of punishment. We believe that time spent together, resting, reconnecting, celebrating, should not be criminalised. And the freedom for families to book annual leave, including for vacations, remains our primary aim. So is it just about cheap holidays, as some would have you think? Or as Natalie likes to say, parents getting a cheap Benidorm bender? Absolutely not. Whilst it is true that the inflated cost of holidays outside of term time is a factor, in fact many parents tell us they simply cannot afford family holidays under the current system, the Fight School Fines campaign is about so much more than money. You may be thinking, but I thought it was about holidays. In part, yes. Families' opportunities to vacation together at a time that works for them is still a huge factor. We have families who simply cannot holiday at peak times due to special needs and disabilities. Families in which parents' leave is restricted by their employers, self-employed parents who can't holiday at their busiest periods, and seasonal workers, all of whom need flexibility if they are to holiday together, as well as those with challenging family circumstances, such as the need to visit a sick relative or navigate difficult custody arrangements. These are all circumstances largely beyond parents' control, yet they have the potential to see parents fined and even criminalised. However, as the campaign grew, so did our understanding of the system that families are really up against. Through thousands of parents sharing their stories, we have come to see that the harm caused by the attendance legislation goes far beyond the issue of securing family holidays. It is wide-reaching, deep-rooted, and often hidden.
This is how I've met most of these people, guys, by doing this whole test.
We have uncovered, for example, a worrying trend across the country of schools incorrectly recording absence. In particular, it appears commonplace for absences for illness and unavoidable medical appointments to be marked as unauthorised, even when satisfactory evidence is supplied. This can include children being sent home sick by the school, appointments such as talking therapies organised by the school themselves, mental health challenges, including those arising from the child's SEND needs, not being met in school, such as emotional-based school avoidance, and even children attending ongoing treatment for serious medical conditions, including terminal illness. The consequence for parents of these unauthorised absences can be severe, yet for schools, failing to follow statutory government guidance in this way There is no accountability. We also hear numerous accounts from parents stressed and frustrated when teachers do not exercise their power to grant leave for exceptional circumstances. For example, to attend funerals, family weddings, to care for a sick or dying relative, or for unforeseeable family emergencies, even tragedies. Families across the country are being punished, not just financially, but emotionally, psychologically, and socially. Not for refusing to engage with education, but for doing their best in the face of illness, neurodivergence, trauma, disability, bereavement, and hardship. We have heard the argument when exposing the truth of this widespread misreporting that in most cases this will not ultimately lead to a conviction. But we say the harm to families is occurring not solely at the point of paying a fine or being handed a criminal conviction, but in the inevitable investment of time, energy, cost and stress for parents in order to defend these wrongful accusations.
Yeah, and I know who this one is. I met her before.
He said, is this your last one? Sorry, I've got two more. We've heard from parents desperately worried that they may lose their job or chosen career if they receive a criminal conviction, leaving them unable to support their families. Parents who've been disbelieved when reporting illness, who've faced unannounced home visits, accusations of neglect, or been dragged through endless threats, meetings and evidence gathering. Families who are gaslit by professionals, shamed for seeking help and criminalised for caring, all in the name of driving up attendance. In some cases, parents are managing serious health issues themselves, navigating grief, or having welcomed a new addition into the family, yet common sense does not prevail. We have families living on the breadline, or trapped in domestic abuse situations, yet facing the additional worry of financial penalties and court for simply making choices to protect and support their children. So is the issue with the legislation, or is it a matter of schools and local authorities not correctly discharging their duties? Of course it is both, but ultimately the responsibility lies with the government, with the punitive nature of school attendance legislation, with misleading propaganda about the supposed school attendance crisis, with the excessive pressure put on local authorities, which is passed on to schools and in turn to families. With their stubborn determination to shift the blame for school attendance challenges onto parents and children, instead of looking to the failings of the education system where the true problems lie. And let's not forget, the sole purpose of categorising school non-attendance as a crime and levying fines and prosecutions was to improve school attendance. Local authorities issued a staggering 487,344 fines in 2023 to 24. Yet improvements in attendance has been negligible. In summary, attendance fines penalise families already struggling, they punish parents for creating opportunities and memories for their children, they discriminate against families such as those with disabilities and single parents, they pour worry and stress into family homes, exacerbating family challenges and causing harm. Attendance fines do nothing to tackle the so-called attendance crisis, and ultimately they compromise the well-being of the country's children. Protect our children. Say no to school attendance fines. Thank you.
Well done, Lois.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Right, I've never done this before. So, my name is Jade Knight. You may occasionally see me on Facebook as Patients for Parent Carers. This is an organisation that is in pre-establishment at the moment. It is not formally organised. Over many years, I've had the fortunate pleasure of supporting numerous families in various circumstances.
both personally and both in my professional life as a carer. One of the things I wanted to raise with you today in respect to the Children and Wellbeing Bill is the silence there is over our corporate parenting as it is, over our foster care services, over our kinship carer services. There's silence, there's radio silence on this right now. They are all too scared to speak. So I'm not a kinship carer anymore, I'm not a foster carer anymore, I don't have corporate parenting involvement, but I can tell you this bill is going to be significantly harmful to those with early access, for those on kinship carer or foster carer or under the corporate parenting bracket as it is now. So when it comes to corporate parenting, you have significantly high goals. You have higher goals than what the social care workers actually have to support children, which needs to be in place for certain reasons. When it comes to kinship care, and especially kinship care, there is a significant pressure to act in a formal professional manner when caring for whoever comes to your door at that moment in time. With that in mind, about 80% of the time when a kinship care situation is initiated, no advice or guidance is given. And then about 50% of the kinship care places are closed or not able to continue. Not due to the children, due to the lack of support, the lack of care that's in place for all of us and for the children themselves. If you look at the studies and the statistics on the social care sector in yourself, there is a significant level of unfounded allegations or open claims that aren't necessary. Equally, there is no sustainable pathway, there is no wraparound care provided for any family or for anybody. So one of the reasons that I've set up what I have, and one of the things I'm trying to do what I have, is because I see no resolution with this bill. This bill is just another overzealous punitive measure that doesn't bring resolution, it doesn't bring connection, it doesn't bring support. It doesn't turn around and go, oh, I've spoken with this mum, I can see we can't get them into school that day. Okay, that's all right, mum. Have this pack for you to do. Speak to this organisation. Bring young minds. Do this. Link the network. We have no network, and it's filtered out with a lot of it. My biggest concern, I suppose, especially when it comes to corporate parenting, is it fails. We fail spectacularly, and I speak with a lot of people underground and behind the scenes, and they are too person from the corporate parenting section that wants to come and speak about this because they're terrified they're going to lose those children that they fought ages for. They're going to lose those special guardianship orders and the very skeletal funding that's in place. With this Children's Wellbeing Bill, we are going to have an increase and an influx of the need for corporate parenting, which, let's face it, the bill in itself is basically a corporate parenting model, if we're going to be frank. Like, it's exactly what it is. It's a corporate parenting model across the nation. Now, personally, I'm not going to tolerate that, and like many of us, we're not going to continue that. As we know, none of us really know where we go from here. None of us, we've got many ideas, but we don't know what we do. But I do believe one of the only ways forward is to connect, and to connect together, and to realise that behind every kinship carer, behind every early help plan, I mean, there's some situations obviously with children at risk that is completely different and separate from this statement in itself. But even then, we don't care for the families. We don't signpost. We go, oh, speak to this person, you'll speak to that person, and what happens? Oh, pop onto this website, speak to that person. Oh no, actually that's not for us. Now that happens in corporate parenting on a significant level. What also happens in corporate parenting and in kinship care and stuff is we lose our family members. We lose all the support. Foster carers in themselves, there is a significant decrease in foster carers. They cannot do it, they cannot cope with it, and it's not the children, it is the system. So with that in mind, and if we're already failing on such a significant level in corporate parenting as it is now, with this bill in mind, we're going to lose quite a lot of our children that are in the system. It's going to be faster routes for adoption, because I will be completely honest, if you do the research, and I can't remember the exact numbers because I left my speech at home, we're one of the highest people, one of the highest nations when it comes to adoptions, next to America. And when the research is done into process, it's actually found that a lot of these could have been avoided reunification and support of the parents should be on everybody's mind, be it from school or with anything else. Now, I'm a lone parent carer. I'm a domestic abuse survivor. I was a young carer as a child. I've been in the professional care sector for over 20 years, and there is one thing we fail on time and time again. We don't meet the needs. So I could walk into any place professionally and I could sit there and I can go, my service user needs this child needs this, the parent needs to go and have a bath and some food and a nap, and she needs her own little village. Like, where's our village gone? We don't have villages anymore, and this is going to be a massive problem if this continues. I don't like the radio silence on the kinship care sector. Or the foster care sector, or the corporate parenting sector. It is a significant concern to me, and I've lost many hours sleep trying to figure out where we go from here. But corporate parenting doesn't work as it stands. This bill is exactly that on a larger scale. As someone that's dabbled into that world, it is exactly what this is. But I think I'm also here to say that there's a better way. The ethos that we should we should stand by, and all of you have done today, is we're a connected nation. We stand by each other regardless of our difference of opinions in the best interest of our children, and that is the foundation we should be building. That is our focus. We should be looking at every teacher, every sector, every home educator, every child, every person. It doesn't matter what sector, what religion, whatever you hold. We should be looking at them and going, how can we support them to thrive safely? How are we going to make sure that we're not suppressing them? And that's not happening right now. And that is what we need to change. And my message to any corporate parent or kinship parent or foster care, or to anyone right now, is you're not alone, and you do not need to be fearful. We are in this together, and we will get through this. This is about all of us, and you're not alone. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for staying so long. Thank you for waiting for me. Thank you to the lady doing the live streaming for staying so long. I'm not quite the last. Jen's going to come back and sum up in a minute. She'll be quick. Who am I? I'm a parent, I'm a grandfather, and I'm a home educator. I'm no longer a home educator on the outside, but I am on the inside. My name's Randall Hardy. You may have seen me on occasional things or read things. And for a while I've been saying this bill is dangerous. The Children's Woe and Surveillance Bill is the most dangerous bill on education so far. And it was really good to hear Michael Charles, a solicitor with a lot of experience, agreeing. I think I got there before him, but I'll let him take the credit. Right, we were a mixed bag earlier. I don't know who's left still, but one of the things I wanted to say is not everybody gets home education, but I want to tell you why this bill's dangerous from the point of view of schools, the world of schools. You know, foundation of British education has been that school teachers always worked loco parentis, which means as a delegate of the parent. Right? Now what are we seeing? We're seeing that the school teachers become in loco civitatis, an agent of the state. And if you want an example, and it's not my original one, but I find it's one that connects. When I was young, a very long time ago, my parents used to write a letter to the school and say, Randall will not be in school on Thursday, we are taking him somewhere. And the school teachers would mark down in the register, authorised absence. Why? Because my parents authorised my absence from school. Now we've had somebody here already from school fines objections. Why's that happened? It's because the teachers no longer work on behalf of the parent, they work on behalf of the state. And they've now punished parents if they don't do what the state wants. That's the example I've got. But I want to move on to where the foundation for local parentis lies in British legislation. I'll try not to be boring, but I've got to take you back to the 1944 Education Act. And preserved in the current Bill Act, which is the 1996 version, Section 7, is a statement where it says the duty of parents, it's the duty of parents to secure education of children of compulsory school age. Note that it is the duty of parents. But I have to say to you, not just through this bill, but over the last 15 years, to my personal knowledge, the Department for Education have been trying to pickpocket you parents. They've been trying to dip your pocket and take your authority, your responsibilities as parents away and put it in their bureaucratic drawers. Alright? No, you don't want that, do you? And why do they want to do it? Well, the bottom line seems to me to be a very simple one. They don't trust you. That is the reason they want to do it. They don't trust you to bring up your children as they want you to bring them up. I haven't got this written down, but how many have heard of the World Health Organization?
Yes.
How many of you know the name of the first Director General? Brock Chisholm, a Canadian general, way back in the 1940s, and he said, unless we free children from the strange ideas of the parents, we will never get the society that we want. And that is an underlying agenda from quite a while back. But you see, Ofsted don't believe parents can be trusted to read more than 5 words. Well, the department keeps telling Ofsted 1 word was enough, and now they're saying, well, 5 words, but they really don't trust parents to think. It is not just one area, it's lots of places. Why can't the government talk to parents in sentences, proper paragraphs? Maybe because they can't write in them anymore. Now, going back to this bill, you will have heard several politicians, Bridget included, and the other ministers say parents have nothing to fear from this bill. If you read the bill itself, you don't think they have too much to fear. You might think they've got little bits. It's when you get to the small print behind the bill. And that makes clear that every parent, not just one group, but every parent has something to fear. And I want to give you an example. I'll try not to make it too boring. You go to the European Convention on Human Rights memo, and you'll find 5 references to a European court case called Conrad v. Germany in 2006. And I'm not going into it. It was a parent who took the German state to court because they believed they had the right to choose how their child was educated due to their religious convictions. They lost the case, and they lost it because German law has always said, I'm jumping ahead, I'll give you the exact quote, the German constitution says the care and upbringing of children is the natural right of parents and a duty primarily incumbent upon them. The state shall supervise them in the performance of this duty. So Parents in Germany have the right, the responsibility, but they have to be child-minded by the state. So 5 times in this bill, in the memo, this judgment's quoted by the DFE, and in 2 of those occasions it says, this judgment says, the state can insist on compulsory education in schools. Now that is what is behind this bill. Not just in school, but in the type of school. We've had people here concerned about the curriculum and how that's been taken back into full state control. And by the way, we're not going to have a British curriculum, so what's good about the English one that isn't good about the Welsh one? And what's good about the Welsh one that isn't good about the Scottish one? And you keep going. The curriculum isn't an answer, but the values that are taught today in schools are not for the welfare of children, they're to squeeze children into a mould for the welfare of the state. And that's what they want. They don't trust parents to teach their children how they want to be taught. So what we're going to do, I want to say to you, that legislation, that European judgment really doesn't apply in Britain, because here we've had no right for the state to supervise parents. They are not here to supervise. We've heard that time and time again today. Right? The bill isn't clear, but the department is trying to pickpocket you, take your responsibilities away by the back door, by using the small print. Now, what's dangerous about the German situation? Well, Tom referred to it earlier in passing. It was this clause that says the state shall supervise the parent that enabled a man called Adolf Hitler to change the interpretation of the law in Germany. He came to power in 1933, and in 1936 the law of the Hitler Youth was introduced, and that so that all young people were educated in the spirit of National Socialism. Right? And he wanted to do that. Oh, by the way, we've had human rights mentioned. One of the articles, point 3, says that parents have primacy in education. But the second point in that very same thing says all children shall be taught the values of the United Nations. Wow. Yeah. So who has primacy? Who gets mentioned first? If parents are first, they should get mentioned first, and it should be said where parents are happy for it. It's a big thing. When we've had a speaker mention communism earlier, right? I think he's onto something, but the problem we've got, everybody thinks communism is far left. Like totalitarianism, it's neither left nor right. You can go right round the circle and end up in the same place. Totalitarianism is the problem, and that's here. Now, 3 years after that, war broke out. But I want to bring you forward now to this building across here. It wasn't this end of the building. They weren't using it in wartime. I was informed by a very reliable person yesterday. They were using the far end of the building. The Commons was meeting in the Lord's Chamber on March the 21st, 1944. That was about 12 weeks before D-Day. So we're not at the end of the war. We're 12 weeks before D-Day, and they were having a debate on Clause 36 of the Education Bill introduced by Rab Butler. And there was a small group of MPs who wanted the phrase at school, well, the phrase at the end of the clause, or otherwise taken out. Now this was really a part of class wars. They wanted all children to be taught in state schools, and they were never going to win it, but they wanted to make their voice heard, and they worked on it. And at the end of that debate, the Labour Parliamentary Secretary to the Board of Education, a junior education minister, Brad Butler's second in command, rebutted their arguments. And he said this: let us realise that what the Hon members are asking for is a state monopoly on education. Surely we have seen enough of that in Europe during the last few years to indicate the danger of that. He went on to say, I do not believe, and the government do not believe, that they have a right to prescribe the only form of education that shall be given in this country. Wow. Yep. I'm educating you today, aren't I? Right? We now have a state system that does not believe that. They want to tell everybody how their children should be taught. And that's why this bill is dangerous. The Department of Education wants to prescribe the education every child receives, just as happened in Germany, but they want to do it by the back door, not through a main bill, because they know they would lose if they put it on the face of the bill. Now, all this began under a previous Labour Education of State. In 2009, Ed Balls, who was a politician before he went on Strictly Come Dancing, was the Education Minister. It's now being driven forward by the next Labour Education Minister. But I have to say it's not all their fault, because in between Ed Balls and Bridget Phillipson there's been a succession of many Conservative education ministers who lost their convictions, who turned over and went soft on the underbelly. And they could have stopped this much earlier. But now we're in a place where it has the potential, as it stands, to undermine them completely. I'm getting to the end now. I want to talk about a legal opinion that was published a few weeks ago from a QC called Aidan O'Neill by the Christian Institute. And in that legal opinion, if you've not read it, it's fascinating reading. He talks on several occasions about the post-Nuremberg foundations of the European Convention on Human Rights. That is what we're talking about with Heed saying we don't want what happened in Germany here. And O'Neill asserts that it was drafted in conscious and complete rejection of two central aspects of the German legal system that prevailed in the time of the Second Reich. Right? Now, I'm not going to go into them. I'm just saying the arrows are there pointing why human rights should protect us from what the departments are trying to use them to bring about. So I want to say to you, in its present form, this bill will become a watershed between Britain being a post-Nuremberg society, which does not prescribe the type of education children receive, and a society where totalitarian politicians from left or right will one day take ownerships of young hearts and minds. This is a point where the water will start flowing the other way if it's not stopped. And therefore it must be stopped, not just for today's children, but for future children. And I'm sure some of you have heard this, but I want to sum up with the quote from the Lady Hales, who was the chief of the Supreme Court in 2016 when the Christian Institute took the Scottish Government to court over its named person scheme, and the Scottish Government lost it. And she said this: different upbringings produce different people. The first thing a totalitarian regime tries to do is get at the children, to distance them from their subversive, varied influence of their families, and indoctrinate them in the rulers' views of the world. Within limits, families must be left to bring up their children in their own way. If we don't stop this bill, children will not be brought up by their families. Thank you. Come on, Jen, second bite to the cherry.
Yeah, I'm too tired to climb up there, I'm afraid. I won't get down again. Thank you so much to everybody who has gone the distance today. And thank you everyone who has come out to march with us and stand with us as we reject the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Bill and any policy that is anti-family, anti-send, anti-children, which includes the school fines and also the VAT on private education. So my final words really, and I'll keep it brief because I'm sure we all need a cup of tea and a lie down. It's really about spreading the word. What do we do next? It was wonderful to see you all here. We've had a great time. We filled up our tanks of camaraderie and community, but it can't stop there. So here are just some key things to do. There are the obvious ones. You can keep speaking to your MPs. I am particularly interested in speaking to Liberal Democrat MPs at the moment, so if you have one, send them my way, please. I have things to say to them. Speak to your MPs, stay a good friend to them, email them once a week, tell them what you're thinking, tell them what's going on, tell them what you're worried about. Lords, members of the House of Lords, if you happen to know one, if there's one in your community, if you just want to go down the list and choose one and drop them an email, tell them your story, don't go on too long, maybe just a nice A4 side or a couple of A4 sides, just talking about why the home education or school fines or whatever thing you are not happy with the Labour Party about, tell them why it is important to you and let them know, because all of it adds up, because even if it isn't in the bill, anything that dilutes the Labour message and anything that throws what they're doing into question is going to help them with decisions about the bill and what's going on forwards. The main thing we need to do is we need to wake people up. Too many people have said to me today, oh hi Jen, yeah, I'm here on my own because I tried to bring people with me and they wouldn't come. I understand that finances stop people from coming to protests, absolutely fine. But I also know there are hundreds of thousands of people who are being impacted by the bill, by policies, and lots of them could be here today, but their thoughts are, there's no point. The bill's going through anyway, what's the point? I'm not wasting my time. And the second one is, oh, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Either it'll be fine, it's not going to happen, they haven't managed to do it before, why would they now? Or it doesn't impact me. Well, I'm sorry to tell you this, and I'm speaking to everybody on social media who's going to watch this hopefully later. This bill is coming for you too. If you are a home educator, your life will categorically change. The information you'll be required to give, the level of detail, the scrutiny it will be given, and the whole feeling of whose responsibility it is to provide education will shift. It will go from, yeah, great, you're doing a wonderful job, unless there's something that we're really worried about and we've got services for that, to, right, we're going to decide if your education is suitable. Well, my statement to that is, if the local authority know what a suitable education looks like for every child in their county or their area, then why are they not delivering that suitable education in school? Why are children leaving in droves? It's because they cannot say what a suitable education is, because no one is. I can't tell you what's right for your children, you cannot tell me what's right for mine. Schools are becoming restricted by the minute. Silent corridors, I hear, is the recent one. We mustn't touch each other, we mustn't talk to each other. Doesn't sound much like fun or life or people or humanity to me. So, my message is, please talk to people. Talk online, talk on in person, at your parent groups, on your parent WhatsApp groups, in person, when you meet at the school gates, when you meet at your home education groups, wherever you meet, tell them the message that this bill is going to come for them. And this is the beginning. This is not the end. We have seen a gradual, like I said right at the beginning, a gradual creeping over goodness how many years of the state, as Randall said, removing the responsibilities from the parent onto the state, onto the government. So this bill is not the end, it's part of a process, and if this isn't the end, then I am terrified to think where it's going. So thank you so much, thank you again to Michelle, who needs to sleep for a week I'm sure, thank you to all the stewards, everyone that's helped, all the parents, all the children, well done you guys. I don't think I could have sat still for that long. Thank you so much, spread the word, let's keep this going and stop the bill. Thank you.
Right guys, I'll wrap this up here, both live and video. Thank you for watching, as always. Please share this everywhere. This, like, you know me, I used to be in education myself, and hearing everything going on here today will affect your children, will affect everything you do. I was in education up to a year ago, and I had to stop due to funding cuts. So I went into doing this, and I know myself that if I was still in education, doing a football academy for the college, working with SEN, they wouldn't be where they are now today. So thank you everybody for watching. As always, keep safe, respect, and I'll see you in the next one.
Well done. Fantastic.
Let me just end this one, was it?